Have you ever heard someone say, if we allow students to retake one test, soon they'll expect to retake every assignment, and then soon there'll be no standards at all? This is obviously very dramatic, but it is also a prime example of the slippery slope fallacy at work. Now, being able to recognize and understand these logical fallacies is essential, not just for academics or debate, but it helps you think clearly, argue persuasively, and avoid being manipulated. As someone who values reasoned discussion and studies argumentation techniques, I've explored this fallacy in both academic and real-world settings. The slippery slope fallacy uses fear of extreme consequences to shut down reasonable proposals. Recognizing this is crucial to making logical decisions and arguments. First, I'll explain in better detail what the slippery slope fallacy is. Second, I'll show examples of how it appears in public discourse. Third, I'll explain how to spot it and avoid it in your own thinking and communication. Let's first begin by breaking down what exactly this fallacy is and how it works. According to the Purdue Online Writing Lab, a slippery slope argument suggests that taking one minor step will eventually lead to a large chain of exaggerated related events which all lead to negative outcomes. Now, these connections have little to no logical basis between these steps, but can be tricky to spot, and you can be easily manipulated if you aren't aware. The Internet of Encyclopedia of Philosophy explains that the slippery slope fallacies rely on fear rather than any substantial evidence. By skipping over the steps that would actually need to occur for the final extreme to happen, they can avoid any real debate and possibly get away with this flawed argument. Now that we know what this slippery slope fallacy is, let's take a look at where it shows up most often, which is in politics and in media. Politicians are guilty of using the slippery slope reasoning. For instance, saying that if we legalize marijuana, next we'll legalize all drugs ignores the nuanced legislative process and social distinctions between substances. Another common example is in debates about technology and the advancement of AI. A lot say, if we let AI write essays, soon we'll never even be able to know how to think. This argument completely skips over any sort of balanced approach to the regulation or educational integration of artificial intelligence. So if these arguments are so common, how can we protect ourselves from being misled by them? According to the book Critical Thinking, A Concise Guide by Bowell and Kemp, one way to spot a slippery slope is to ask, is there any evidence that supports this chain of consequence? If none is provided, it's likely a fallacy. A simple method is to demand specifics. If someone claims X will lead to chaos, ask them to explain how and why. If they can't, their argument will quickly collapse. Now let's wrap up with the key ideas that we've discussed today. Today we talked about the slippery slope fallacy, what it is and how it's used, and how to avoid it. Remember, just because one action happens doesn't mean catastrophe will always follow. Only if there's evidence to support that path. The next time someone says, if we let this happen, it'll be the end of everything, pause and ask, really? Or is this just a slippery slope fallacy? Thinking clearly is one step that we should all be willing to take.